Jay Sano without intro music. Jay Sano with intro music. Intro music remix. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Catching up.
Figure something out.
When Tommy continued to struggle. Welcome back, everybody. Chapter 3, Catching Up of the Novelist playthrough, where this time we're just making sure that the wife gets everything she's ever wanted and nobody else gets anything, because I want to see how the story progresses with that. Mr. and Mrs. Kaplan, I want to stress that it's perfectly normal for some children to fall behind in a specific area. Tommy may be struggling with reading comprehension, but his verbal and visual abilities are excellent. That said, he won't catch up on his own. He will need support from both of you. I recommend that you do the attached exercises with Tommy every weekday morning for 1 or 2 hours. He'll be unable to focus exclusively on these for 2 straight hours, so you'll need to take the intermittent breaks, but use your judgment and stay with it as long as you feel he can stay engaged. I suggest that you do sessions in the morning before he tires himself out and becomes distracted. I feel confident that with a supportive environment and dedicated exercise, he will catch up to the other children in his class. Please be in touch if you have any questions. Dr. Donald Samuels. So, poor Tommy. He's not doing so hot in the schools. It's over here. Can I focus on this?
Barb.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry it's been so long since I've written.
Things have been hectic around here, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get things back on track. I don't want to get into it, but we're getting pulled in a lot of different directions right now. Nothing hurtful, just competing priorities, I guess. Although those can get worse and worse over time. I mean, Dan and I, before we got up here, you know, we'd start to drift. Look at that. I said it. I didn't want to get into it, and I did anyway. Wait, that didn't make any sense. Look at that. I said I didn't want to get into it, and I did anyway. That's better. Enough about me. Please tell me you're doing well, and I hope this doesn't stress you out too much. I promise to write happier letters soon. Yours always, Linda. So what do we got going on in the kitchen? I hear Tommy. There's nothing going on in the kitchen. Well. Hey, Linda. Tickets are booked for Tahoe. Let's get into your thoughts.
We barely talked yesterday.
Wow, you're right. I guess we've just been so busy.
Yep, that's what it is. Busy. Not boredom. Nothing like that.
Mom and Dad left this morning, and I'll never have to wear that sweater again. It's not just ugly, it's hot and itchy. And the
why do you ask trick completely worked. I don't think I've ever seen Dad, I don't know what else to call it, blushed. That made the trip worth it, although seeing that Mom and Dad are doing well was great too. Maybe Dan and I will end up that way, happy down the road. So basically she was supposed to, whenever they asked about how their relationship, her friend told her to say, "Why do you ask?" And it would make them rethink whether it was actually a relevant question or not. Dumb idea in my opinion, but she claims it worked. So, I'm in the memories. I don't need to be in the memories anymore. I already figured you out. I have to, well actually, your art studio probably has a clue.
Dan and I had a good conversation today.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if it was actually good, but I feel like I got my point across about family time. We've been getting a little frayed on the little things lately, and it reminded me of something Anne once said. Love is a behavior, not an emotion. If something's important to you, you show it with your actions. We weren't doing so well with that before we got here. I told Dan my idea. I want us all to eat together at 7 every night with family time after that. Tommy's wiped out by 8:30, and so we get a solid hour and a half of family, and then Dan and I could have the rest of the night to ourselves. And I think 7's a reasonable request. The rest of the working world knocks off around 5, right? Doesn't really matter what we do at the time, just that we spend it together. It's easy to make excuses when you have a lot going on, which is why patterns help. I hope he feels the same way. See, Linda, I gotta tell you, I completely disagree with you. I'll explain in a minute. Ideas, weekly routine, or weekly outing, where? Tuesday movie night, check channel guide, or maybe going to town. Family dinner, 2 old-fashioned, picnic, farmer's market. So, The concept of stopping everything. Oop, I just went into Dan's memories. The concept of stopping everything at a specific time because you think that that's when the rest of the world knocks off at 5, so he should knock off at 7 and we should be our time. People don't work on an 8 to 5 schedule or a 7 to 7 schedule or whatever you want it to be on a regular basis. So just telling him that you can't be inspired after 7 o'clock is kind of a bad move, in my opinion. Being somebody who works night shift, day shift, etc., I disagree with you, Linda. However, in this playthrough, you will get your way.
And as for last weekend, I can't stop wondering what kind of advice Tynan would have had for Act 2. Still a mess.
Yeah, it's still a mess. Tried to work on it, but it was impossible to get anything done with so much going on. Although I guess I did flex a little creativity. I came up with an impressive number of errands to run just to get out of the house. Good work, Dan. It's interesting. I've never not let Dan see his buddy, I don't believe. So this is kind of new.
Whoa.
Whoa! Good memory.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped. I just.
Not even going to show him snapping. Just, you know he did. Tommy. Let's do this, buddy. Tommy. If we get into Tommy's thoughts. Follow the sound. There he is. He's still sad about Daddy.
Will it make me smarter?
Honey, listen to me. You are smart.
That old bold-faced lie, but okay.
Hey, Dad.
Hey.
Do what you can for your children. Okay, let's get upstairs. Let's find out what's in the bedroom. There's got to be something here. Here we go. Launis Learns Letter, age 4 to 6. 12 chapters of reading comprehension exercises. That's one of Tommy's clues. So, by having them get family dinner, am I going to eliminate Tommy from studying? I guess that would be a compromise.
Time.
This would be easier if I didn't have to sleep. Last night after Linda went to bed, I spent some time, there's that word again, trying to make everything fit. I even drew up a little chart. See, exactly! He waited for Linda to go to bed, and then he still is trying to get stuff done. Like, Linda, let the man have his own creative time. That's why you're here at this lake house. Oh, Linda. I even drew up a little chart. The math is simple. It doesn't work. Technically, I could still get in 8 hours, assuming I don't eat or need to do anything that's not writing. But what about letters, reading, dealing with Paul? Hell, what about doing the dishes or taking out the trash? Not to mention the knocking off for the day isn't the flipping off of a switch. It takes time to crawl out of the head and start functioning like a normal person again. And I can't just split it up into smaller chunks. Sometimes it takes an hour of false starts just to get anything usable. And stopping just sends the whole process right back to square one. Something's got to give. You're right, Dan, man. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. But you sadly will not be getting your way in this playthrough. I don't think there's ever been anything in the bathrooms. Tommy doesn't like books. He murders them, apparently. And he gets made fun of at school that he's not going to. Okay. Was that not even a clue? I haven't found anybody's, like, resolution yet for this chapter.
Alan, this letter might come from out of the blue, but
do you remember when you told me about Bobby falling behind on reading? Looks like we're there with Tommy. We knew he was struggling when we came up here, but his teacher gave us a list of books for him to work on over break and said we should see how he responds to the change in environment. She gave us a few sample readings and told us to keep an eye on how he was grasping the concepts. Tommy still isn't there, and long story short, the pediatricians in town know a specialist who gave us some exercises to try. They seem pretty straightforward, but I wanted to write and see if you had any tips to help with guys, that helped you guys with Bobby. Damn, just realized I didn't even ask you how you've been. Sorry, this stuff's just a lot to think about. Yeah, it is, I'm sure. Your child's struggling. It makes you sad. Perfect schedule, aka the single unattached writer's guide. 10 to 2 write, 2 to 3 eat and step away, 3 to 7 write, 7 to 8 eat, 8 to 10 decompress plus edit plus life. Interesting. So he wrenches Tommy till 11. I don't know what that means. Knock off at 7. Your whole schedule that you're going to complain about is 1 hour in the morning or in the evening. You actually seem to be able to function in the schedule like I just talked about that people like writers probably can't. You can, and you're gonna bitch about 1 hour. Dan, I no longer am on your side. Sorry, Dan, but that's just the way it is.
Time.
Oh, I already read that one. Did I miss something in here? I have not found everything I need to find. I don't have anybody's compromises, I don't believe. Linda? Oh, no, here we go. Family should have dinner on the table every night. I guess I do have compromises. That's not a table, that's a counter. Table. Here we go. Selecting the table, choose Linda's resolution. Linda, again, your wish will come true. And I don't want to compromise, because that's not what this playthrough is about. So Dan, you tell her. Linda was glad when Dan committed to family dinners each night, and she made sure to give Tommy extra help in the mornings. Being able to count on quality family time every night, she knew that Dan would have dedicated time together, giving their relationship a sense of stability that helped them face other challenges. Tommy didn't understand why his father, a writer, wouldn't help him with his reading lessons. Linda devoted herself to Tommy's morning practice, but only having one parent there sent a message to Tommy that he couldn't forget. The sounds of Dan's typewriter drifting down to the den was a constant reminder of Dan's priorities. Dan couldn't figure out a way to please everyone and still make room for time and focus he needed to write. He was able to compromise and fit in one unbroken session each day, but for the rest of the day he worked around his family commitments and tried to make the most of the shorter sessions. The lack of focus came through in his work. And that's how the Kaplan's first month at the house on the cliff came to an end. Paul asked to see some of Dan's progress, and it took Dan 2 weeks to work up the courage to call his agent and tell him that there had been none. There wasn't enough of a book to even call it a disaster. It simply wasn't there. A few nights later, Dan and Linda got a babysitter and drove into town for a date. Dan surprised Linda by giving her a necklace he'd snuck into town to buy the day before, and Linda surprised him back when she gave him a watch he had his eye on. When they got home, they erupted upstairs and made Tommy asleep, and then they made love like it was their wedding night again. I don't know how any of that stuff just happened. Next day, Dan made a good on his promise to take Tommy to the woods and look for arrowheads, though he did it more out of the sense of obligation than any real enthusiasm. They barely made it to the woods before he told Tommy it was time to go back. Tommy started to cry, but Dan was unmoved. They came home without a single arrowhead. Oh, Dan. That's what I was looking for. They still had 2 more months on the coast, and their story was just beginning. Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Inheritance. Dan got a letter.